live. Keep your face on. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So the topic we're going to be talking about is free choice and the attached questions that a lot of the secular world has. There's two questions when you break down Bechira Chavshis. First of all, what is it and where is it applicable? And the challenges and the resistance that people have to free choice are mainly split in two. You have psychological questions, or let's call them human, social questions, and then you have religious questions. So there's two prakim of it in the Rambam discussing Bechira Chavshis and many other sources. I just printed out the basics so we don't do overkill. We'll go through these 4 sifim of the Rambam, and we're going to discuss it and address the classic questions that we probably all have, culminating in every Chabad house's or every Bacher's question that they all ask, and at some point just put under the rug. If Hashem knows what I'm going to do anyways, then how do I have free choice? I can't choose what Hashem. If Hashem already knows what I'm going to do, I can't choose the other way. So that's the climax we're going to hit, and we're actually going to take the question one step further to a much stronger question, but we're going to get there towards the end. Halacha Aleph, the Rambam lays down the basic concept of Bechira, Rishus L'chol Adam Nesuna, and its history, when it started, seemingly. Rishus L'chol Adam Nesuna, Im Ratza Lahatis Atzmei L'derech Teva V'li'es Tzadik HaRishus B'yadei. Everyone's life is in their own domain. In other words, we could do whatever we want to do. We're capable of whatever we want to be capable of, and we're incapable of whatever we tell ourselves we can do. If you want to live a negative life, you can. It seems like the Rambam saying that the Bechira, the way we have it now, started from Chet Eitz Hadas. When Adam and Chava ate from the Eitz Hadas, they became conscious. Consciousness is the result of Chet Eitz Hadas, and now they're going to choose consciously between good or between bad. People are the only existence. As the Rebbe Rashab says, even Malachim don't have free choice either. But I'm going to explain that in a second. That he will consciously know good and bad and consciously choose whichever one he wants, and no one could tell him what to do and what not to do. Therefore, he has to have a life end. He has to realize that he's going to end up accountable to Hashem, because if people live forever and they have free choice and no one can tell them what to do, the results would be disastrous. So if they ate from Chet Eitz Hadas, they shouldn't be able to live forever. Interesting history of Chet Eitz Hadas. Let's get to Siv Beis, and then we're going to discuss some of the questions. Don't let it enter your mind what the tipshei umayis ha'olam, sharp term, what the foolish goyim, V'reiv golmei b'nei adam, and people that are just blocks of wood, that are just blobs. Shakadosh Baruch Hu geizer al adam etchilas b'yaseh li'esadik harasha, that Hashem set in stone, right? My life is this way because my life is this way. Hashem already decided. I can't make a difference to my life anyways. Any person, if he just wants to, could be a tzaddik like Moshe Rabbeinu, or a Rasha like Yeravam ben Nevat, who was the classic Rasha in the time of the Nevi'im and the Malachim. If someone, interesting, even someone's mental capacity and how smart they are is up to someone's choice. If they want to be foolish, if he wants to be a merciful person, or if he wants to be a wicked person, if he wants to be stingy, if he wants to be generous, and all midas. In other words, not only our actions are up to free choice, even our tendencies and our character traits. We could choose. If we want to be a nice guy, we could. If we want to be gruff and vicious, we could. And it's the person himself is in full control of his own life. So the challenges that the secular world have had to this notion have been mainly in 3. But the Iker is really, do we have full control? Seemingly the way our relationship with our parents, Sigmund Freud or psychologists usually say, affect much of our lives, set us in certain tendencies, right? Even our DNA makeup, the way that we're physically hardwired to come to certain decisions, right? When I face a cup of water or a cup of orange juice, You know what's going on to that decision? All my background, maybe the colors of the orange and the clear, one being simple, one being more complex because I had a more simple or complex relationship with my parents. And my DNA in general is connected to certain types of thinking. A lot is going into a decision between orange juice and water. You're going to tell me I have full free choice? No, I'm hardwired to just go for this one. And some have said, some say the communist or socialist Marx, whatever thing, Karl Marx, said that people are just victims of their financial class. You're only going to make X decisions if you're low class. You're going to make X decisions if you're high class. So we need to equate the economy so that everyone will make similar just decisions. That was his thought. In other words, either because of financial or because of our hardwiring or because of our relationship with our parents, our background, seemingly we have tendencies, and it's true to a degree, right? So what does that have to do with free choice? From the Rambam, it looks like, and the way Chassidus discusses it, is free choice is specifically in decisions of conscience, meaning in Torah mitzvahs, but that makes it sound a bit too religious, in conscience-related decisions. In other words, maybe between orange juice and seltzer, I don't have a real free choice. I'm not going to just follow a human tendency. When it comes to something that's right or wrong, absolutely nothing in our genes pulled us in that direction without our conscience either passively choosing to do so, in other words, just becoming victim to our pull in a certain direction, or actively choosing to do so against our pull, usually passively, Because Bechira pretty much is conscience. Bechira is found in the Seichel, and most decisions that we do we don't need to tap into that part of ourselves. It's more basic decisions, or it's more balabatish decisions that don't reach our soul. Bechira Bechira makes us free people, right? Bechira is very powerful, but it makes us very free. In other words, we can blame nothing in our lives on anyone. That's why a lot of people like resisting it. I cannot blame anything on anyone else that happens in my life. That's my, in other words, my decisions, my character traits, my tendencies. My tendencies I can blame, but my choices of the character I built for myself, I can't blame anyone. So I will be pulled to certain decisions. But Hashem, when He took us out of Mitzrayim, He made us free people, and that you could always tap into a part of yourself, a voice, a soul, which is aware of the right thing, and you could choose to tap into that soul to go rise above your tendencies by conscience-related things, or to become victim of your tendencies if you so decide to do so. But you could always decide to transcend that. And you see the Rambam writing it also, specifically in Inyanim of Tov Ra, right? Of good and bad things. What's the proof? One of the proofs he brings is you can't have schar v'einish, you can't have reward and punishment if we have no free choice and we are predetermined robots. But it is interesting. It seems like there would be limits to Bechira Chavshis, but the Bechira Chavshis will be limited to Torah and mitzvahs related things. The Shaila, the big Shaila, and you see some stirs in Chassidus about this, I don't want to go into it too much at length, is by Goyim. Do non-Jews have free choice or not? So based on what we've just explained, that even Jews don't always, most of our days are not necessarily tapping into free choice. We're following our tendencies and our habits, right? Even many mitzvahs we do, putting on tefillin isn't necessarily because of our bechira. It's because that's become our morning tendency. The way I drive to work and my route to work might also not be bechira. That's just become my muscle memory. But conscious choices about inyane conscience, about inyane tevera, about Torah mitzvahs, that's specifically where we have bechira. By goyim, where most of their life they don't have conscience-related decisions. They only have their sheva mitzvahs. Most places in Chassidus say that goyim don't have bechira, and bechira amitis, real bechira, is found specifically by Jews. And the Rebbe spoke about this often by political decisions, and it's not their bechira, and it's Hashem working through them. However, in many places, it does say that goyim have bechira to a degree, which would be in which cases? Similar to Jews, in conscience-related decisions that they're responsible for, meaning sheva mitzvahs, violent, not violent, etc. And also one of the proofs would be that goyim also have a degree of Olam Haba for keeping their Zion mitzvahs. So if they have accountability of reward and punishment, then they must also have a degree of Bechira Chavshis, but the term is Bechira Amitis is found specifically by Yidden, because we're free people. Yeah. Yeah. Right, exactly. So that's an extreme. Over in that case, for sure, you would say that they have free choice to do what they did. But the question is, day-to-day goyim, they would have definitely less access to free choice, and it would come up less free. The choice is less free than by Jews in extreme circumstances of Sheva Mitzvahs, which that's off the deep end in Sheva Mitzvahs by a lot. Don't murder times millions. Right. That's a Karl Marx. That's a Karl Marx shitta, which goes against Torah. Yeah, meaning people will do certain things if they're in lower social class, but to certain they can't become murderers because of their social class and because of their economic class. That's in Yonei Sheva Mitzvahs. They can't start stealing because of that. That they have free choice. What was the question? Right. A conscious decision, right? So that's a good question. In other words, if all someone saw, and especially if all someone saw was murder and they didn't even know, then probably over there they don't even have a choice, because choice is conscious, which means I have to know good and bad. If someone doesn't know good, then in that case they wouldn't have free choice, it would seem, right? And they don't know, and they have, like the Rebbe says about many Mikurav Menachabarav, just because they see people keeping Shabbos, they don't yet know that this is the way of life. Just because I've seen healthy, normal people, doesn't necessarily mean that that has anything to do with. Now we might need to put them behind bars anyways because they're a danger to society, etc. But that's an extreme circumstance where someone doesn't even know the right path to live. Yeah, tight that they don't even know. That is the way to live. It's hard to. Okay, I would say it's not always that simple to know that if someone just living that way because everyone around them is living that way, when they do know in their heart of hearts that we shouldn't be killing each other, right? It would be hard to assess on a lie detector if that's a true fact or not. But this is the rule. This is the pattern. The pattern is that by stam decisions, it could even be a Torah mitzvah decision, but if it's not a Torah mitzvah decision that I chose consciously, it's just me running my day. I didn't have free choice. I've been a victim of my tendencies. But specifically in Yonei Tevaran, by Goyim but even by Goyim to a degree, by their Sheva Mitzvahs, they have it too. We're going to skip Sif Gimel because we're going to get there towards the end. Those are these psychological questions that people have, either social reasons or hardwiring because of their genetic code and their DNA, or because of their past and childhood and younger childhood and relationship to their parents, etc. It does have effect on them, but that doesn't mean you're stuck. A Yid is kein mol nicht stuck, as the Rebbe told Mrs. Swerdlove. A Jew can always transcend their tendencies, even though they exist, when it comes to Yonei Tevaran. Comes to Yonei Torah mitzvahs. But now we're going to go to the religious questions, okay? And you hear this from Bachrim all the time. You hear this from people all the time. If Hashem knows what I'm going to do anyways, then do I really have free choice? Hashem knows who I'm going to marry. So does that mean do I choose who I can't choose anyone else to marry? Right? Hashem knows the job I'm going to take. So do I have a choice? How can I have free choice if Hashem knows what's going to be? That's not a psychological question on Bechira. That's a religious question on Bechira. And that the Rambam goes into Siftei. But I'll preface the Rambam that in the Jewish philosophers, there was two shittas in how to deal with this aside for the Rambam shitta, which we're going to get to. Right? If it's seemingly a paradox, how can Hashem know what I'm going to do? And if he knows what I'm going to do, how can I have free choice? You must say one of two things. Either Hashem doesn't fully know what I'm going to do, or I don't fully have free choice. So there was the Ralbag, who said that Hashem knows what you're going to do because he's the best predictor. He knows your tendencies, and based on your tendencies, he knows all the decisions, except for certain areas where you're really access Bechira, then he really doesn't know, because it's talking your choice. That was the Ralbag Shitta, that Hashem's pro-knowledge is limited, which is interesting to note. You had I forgot the name, you had other Jewish philosophers who said, Hashem knows what he's going to do, but Bechira is limited to an extent. I don't know but their Hachra was, one of those two sides are limited. They can't fully coexist. Well, then here the Rambam and Sifhei over here, and there's fireworks between the Rambam and the Ravid. Shema Taimar, you might say, Hashem knows what's going to be. Before someone lives out their life, Hashem already knows if they're going to be a tzaddik or if there's going to be a rasha. If Hashem knows that you're going to live a righteous life, then you can't not live a righteous life, because Hashem knows. So it's going to be. And if you're going to tell me, no, Hashem knows you're going to be a tzaddik, but you still have the choice to be a rasha, then you're going to say Hashem doesn't really know. So how do you get out of this big Jewish question? You should know, the answer to this question is Arucha Me'eretz. Mida is longer than planet Earth, and is longer than the oceans, and is wider, more vast than the oceans. Become ikrim gedolim. Many basic fundamentals of Yiddishkeit, v'haradim ramim floyimba, and big mountains are dependent on this question. Aval tzarich ataleda lahavin. You need to know and understand b'davar zeh she'emer ani that I'm saying. And the Rambam goes on to explain that they're still both true. Hashem does know what you're going to do, but you still have full b'chira chaftis. So the Rambam brings up the question. He says you should know that the answer is very, very vast, and you can't really understand the way Hashem knows things. We might go back to the answer if we have time at the end. Look at the Ravid over there in the little words. Amar Avraham, the Rambam did not act like a smart person, because you shouldn't start off with a question and you don't know how to answer the question. He asked with very strong questions, and he said, "Taka, it's a question," and then he just said, "By the way, just believe it, because we don't understand the way Hashem works anyway." That's the Ravid's shaila on the Rambam. Which is a good question. The Rambam bringing up the question, say you should just know it's true, because hu v'daitei echad, Hashem and his das are one, so we don't even know the way his das works anyways. And I already told you, the Nevi'im say, so to understand the way Hashem's knowledge works, just we can't understand anyways, but we should believe it's true. If you believe it's true, then don't ask the question. So this is, we see what the reason why I'm bringing the previous sources and the Rambam is to see that this was a very difficult question that Chokrim were dealing with for centuries. Maybe Hashem doesn't really know what we're going to do. Maybe we don't have real Bechira Chafshis. The Rambam says, no, they both really do exist, right? The third Shitta, but you should just know the answer is really, really, really difficult. The Ravid says, if you're starting with such a difficult question, why you're not even answering it? And the reason why I bring this history is to know that the Rebbe gives a simple, brilliant answer to the question that's been bothering Jews for centuries. The Lubavitcher Rebbe and Lakuti Sichos. Ready? Okay, it's in the Haisafis of one of the Bereshis ones. I don't remember exactly. And the Rebbe discusses this Rambam and Ravid. Taka, why did the Rambam bring up the question and not really give the answer? So listen to what the Rebbe says. You know what? The Rambam didn't bring the answer to this question. How can Hashem know what we're going to do? If he does know, then how do I have free choice? The answer is because it's obvious. He doesn't even need to answer the question. The answer is so basic. Every two things that happen because of each other have a cause and effect, right? I pressed my gas, so the car went. It's not my car. We don't need to give everyone knows the basic concept of cause and effect. So by Hashem knowing what we're going to do, there's two ways. The premise of the question is because we think Hashem knows what we're going to do, and therefore we choose. But let's say it's the other way around. Any decision we face, we have free choice. But Hashem is Hashem is past, present, and future as one. So Hashem doesn't know what you're going to do, and therefore you're going to do it. You face a decision and have a real decision to make, and it's your free choice. Hashem happens to know the future, so he knows what you're going to choose. Your choice is the cause, and therefore Hashem knows. Not Hashem knows, and therefore you choose. Anyone has questions with this answer? It's a brilliant, simple answer that just unravels much of Jewish philosophy with a very brilliant chap. Because Hashem's above time, it's not that he dictates your choice. He doesn't know, and therefore you choose. You choose, but Hashem happens to know the future. So his knowledge is a result of your choice, not his knowledge dictates your choice. Agreed? No one has any issues with this? Beautiful. It's a very solid answer. The Rebbe says, why did the Rambam not say it? Because the Rambam is discussing a much greater question and answering it to a much truer, purer degree, which we're going to get to with this last question. There's one question of Bechira that goes much, much further and much stronger than Yidio Bechira. How can Hashem know what I'm going to do? And if he does, how do I have free choice? That we answer. That's what Rebbe says is a very simple answer. The Rambam doesn't even need to tell us. But there's a much stronger question. Anyone want to guess what that is? Yes. Excellent. Very good. So Yediyah and Bechira, we can understand. Yediyah is passive. Hashem knows. I have free choice, but Hashem knows what I'm going to do. Hashkacha pratis is Hashem's the mashkiach over here. It's only happening because Hashem's allowing this or setting this up to happen because it's part of his divine plan. So 1 second. I just punched someone in the face. Or I just stole from someone. Was that Hashem doing and okaying, or was that me doing and okaying? And I can't answer the same way. There's a cause and effect, because hashgacha pratis means Hashem setting this into course. Hashem setting this into action. So was it him setting it into action or me setting it into action? What? We would consider, right? So we're going to get to that at the end. That's a side question we're going to get to at the end. But that's seemingly the strongest question that's brought up about Bechira Chapshis. To have Hashem to know what I'm going to do and me to have free choice. Okay, we could correlate. Because I'm not saying he's doing it, I'm just saying he's knowing about it. So I just say his knowledge is a result of my action. But when I'm saying hashgacha pratis, I'm pretty much saying this is Hashem's action. So there's two. The easy answer to that question, which I've seen Ketayim of the Sikh about in Yen Malchus, the compilation of the Rebbe's Sikhs on Rambam, is Nimna HaNimnais, right? Makam Arin Enem and Amida. You can take up space and not take up space at the same time. Hashem could be present in this decision, but at the same time could leave you space to make the decision. And in other words, throwing it on non-logic. That's one of those questions you have to go back to just say Nimna HaNimnais, Hashem is Hashem, and that's it. That's one answer. Another answer, but I'm not going to complete the answer, and I would need to do more research before fully saying it, is there's a Sikha in Chelek Hey Lech Lecha, where the Rebbe discusses that everything's b'hashgacha pratis and everything is Yerida Tzarech Aliyah. So even our bad decisions, there's hashgacha pratis and Yerida Tzarech Aliyah. Hold on, how could our bad decisions be hashgacha pratis and how can we have free choice? So the Rebbe gives a very, very complex explanation on two big questions over there. How can Hashem have hashgacha pratis when I do an avera? It's not Hashem's will. How can I say that my stealing was Hashem's will? Hashem's will is thou shalt not steal. And how can I say that there's hashgacha pratis and bechira? Those are two questions the Rebbe goes through over there. Rabbi Yoel wrote into Chazer the Sikha. He wrote into the Rebbe, if this is the explanation of the Sikha, the Rebbe wrote back, no, that's kfira, what you wrote to me. This is the explanation of the Sikha. And Rabbi Yoel said it was he didn't really understand the difference between the two, so he doesn't share. He never, until the end of his life, didn't share a cohesive explanation on the end of the Sikha. The only reason that I'm saying I don't know if the problematic, what he didn't understand was how can Hashem will in Avera, or how can you correlate Hashgacha and Bechira? But the Rebbe does go into that in a bit more of cohesive ICS and doesn't necessarily throw it back onto Nimna HaNimnais on the fact that Hashem could be Begaloy and not Begaloy at the same time. There's one other beer. One other beer that I've heard based on a university study about how the Holocaust could have happened and how such a big generation could be so twisted to do something, how easily people are convinced. It was a university study, I think, of a doctor who pulled in university patients for medical research about someone who needed shock culture or to go through shocks, and it gets stronger. Whatever it is, Could be. It was within 10, 20 years after the Holocaust that they did this study. And they had a person in a lab coat with the board and saying, every so often, whenever I tell you, just press the button and give the person a shock. It's going to get stronger and stronger as we go, but it's important for the medical research. That was all he was saying. Okay, so and he doesn't see the guy that's happening. Obviously, it's all a coy. There's no one actually behind, but they're doing it as if there's a patient over there. He doesn't know if there's a curtain or there's a wall. Yeah? Really? I didn't think it was, yeah, okay, fine. So what happened? As he said, I'll give a shock. All of a sudden you hear on the recording or from behind the wall, you hear, yeah. And there was no person over there. Okay, Milgram, yeah. He's saying, Said, okay, do it again. And the screams are getting louder and louder because the shock's getting stronger and stronger. At some point, the student said, you sure I should keep doing this? Said, yes, this is important for the medical research. Okay. You hear excruciating cries. Sure, this is important. Like, I should still be doing this. Yeah, it's important for the medical research. At some point, he presses the button, silence. That's it, silence. So in his mind, he just killed someone because a man in a lab coat is saying, just press the button, it's important for medical research, proving how easy it is for people to be convinced. So they tell these students, so obviously go into the mind of the student right now. He is shocked that he just murdered someone in cold blood by electrical shock times 20, 30, etc. Now he finds out that there's no student actually over there. That there's no person behind the bar. Should he be horrified with himself or not? Hold on, no, the researcher knew the whole thing was there. The man pressing the button, should he be horrified that he was a murderer, or should he not be horrified that he was a murderer? Okay, that's a side question. Very good. What happened to him? Okay, you're right. You didn't actually kill someone, but you brought someone to murder. Whether it happened or not, that's not you. Your choice was deciding, I'm going to press this button. I hear someone in excruciating pain until it's a dead silence. So what happens is hashgacha pratis. How present am I in the decision? Conscience. Am I listening or not listening to my conscience? Am I following that voice? That is completely my choice. Whether it happens or not, maybe it's hashgacha pratis. This is seemingly a more logical way to go about the question. You're still with us. What happens is hashgacha pratis, but my presence in the decision, whether it happens or not, is going to be that where we're going to put on hashgacha pratis. Which again, that's the much stronger question about bechira. Before we get to the last point, any questions? Awesome. Well, we skipped Sif Gimel. Let's get back to Sif Gimel. I'll tell you a very nice verse on this. And this, about? Yeah. This be. I don't think it's brought over there as to answer hashgacha and bechira. To make what? Okay, fine. Okay. Navi was asking another question. Okay, we'll get there shortly. Davar zeh ikr gadol hu. Go back to Siv Gimel. This is a big ikr. Hu amud haTorah v'mitzvah. This is the foundation of the entire Torah mitzvahs. Shenemar re'ina sa'ati lefnecha hayom asachayim. Looking, I put in front of you life and death, right? And Siv ubacharta b'chayim klemer sharashus biyedchem b'chol sheyachbetz adam lases mimayse b'nei adam oisa ben tevim ben roim, and whatever someone wants to do, it could be good or bad. He has the choice. If only their hearts. If only I could give them their hearts. In other words, I can't give them their hearts because they have their hearts. I don't force people. The Sif seems to say that this is a Iker Gadol and Amud HaTorah v'Mitzvah. How many Ikrim do we know that the Rambam counts? This is a verse I heard just to end up. It's a very nice, empowering verse I heard from Jonathan Sachs on a talk. Al Shalom. How many Ikrim do you have of Torah mitzvahs? 13, right? 13 principles of faith. Now, the Rambam works in 14. So the Rambam counts his klalim of the shrashim of how to count out the mitzvahs. He has 14 shrashim. His klalim that Moreh Nevuchim is based off of is 14. His halachas farm is Yad HaChazak is 14 books. So it'd be weird to say that he only has 13 principles. The 14th seems to be Bechira Chavshis. Then Ikr Gadol and Amud HaTorah Mitzvah. But then why is it not counted in the Yud Gimel Ikrim? Why don't we say there's 14? And the answer is, going back to Avi's question, how could it be if Hashem's in control of everything? If I say Hashem's not in control of the sun, that's Kfira. If I say Hashem's not in control of what happens to me in business, that's Kfira. But for me to say Hashem's not in control of my actions, that's not Kfira. Why? The answer is that the 13 principles of faith, the Yud Gimel Ikrim, are principles of our faith in Hashem. But the concept of Bechira Chavshis is Hashem's faith in us. So therefore, he left us space knowing that we could bring humanity to a good space. And therefore, it's not counted with the Yud Gimel Ikrim, which are our faith in Hashem. Bechira is Hashem left us space. That gufa is Hashem's control. Hashem, in his control, decided to relinquish control on our decision because of his faith in us. So we don't need to live our lives as victims. We are in complete control to do whatever we want, and we should make the right decisions and live a geula-filled life.